The year I turned 32, I started running. I knew what was driving me. It's just that I was on tracks, on a pre-laid path of my own invention, and I couldn't get off. The year I turned 32, I had 1 year left to live. I had to fit as much as I could into that last year, and it all had to happen yesterday. For some people, the future they feared most was being 60 and broke. For others, the future they feared most was being 50 and still single. For me, the future I feared most was being 32 and dead, like my father. Alan was 32 years old when he unexpectedly had a heart attack and died, 41 days before I was born. Mum was pregnant with me and had 3 kids under the age of 6. Did I know his voice? His breathing? His heartbeat? I was an accidental pregnancy. I made this mean that I was a mistake. In my mind, I wasn't even supposed to exist. From age 8 to 26, I hid being a walking mistake from myself and tried to hide it from others. I knew I had things to share and express and contribute, but communicating was like wading through water, and I never knew why. When I realised that being a walking mistake had come from a story made up by an 8-year-old me, I had the freedom to create something new. I created being a gift to the world. 8 months ago, I got a parcel in the post from my Auntie Dee. She sent me old photos of Alan and newspaper clippings. I found Alan's funeral notice, which I'd never seen. Then I found my birth notice, which I'd never seen. Jenny, Corey, Tamsin and Che, welcome with love, Alan's gift of our daughter, Danica Lani. Everybody around me related to me as a gift, except myself. I finally confronted the absurdity of fearing a future that had already played out in my head, the entire story. Life became peaceful, and I stopped running and started addressing what is truly important to me. Today I am outliving my father. Tomorrow, I am my father's legacy.
So what if we were all gifts to the world and we had barriers to the full self-expression and full realisation of that in the world? I know I certainly did. I want to share with you briefly about what my life looked like being a walking mistake. In my early 20s, I was 21 years old. On my 21st birthday, my mum put me on a train from Wangaratta to Melbourne, and I was homeless for 6 months and bedridden for 6 months. I wasn't well. I'd been studying contemporary dance, been training twice a day, and not really feeding myself how an athlete should feed themselves, and not knowing how to do that. And I'd come out of an abusive relationship, and I'd gone back home where I grew up because I was not well. And I came back to Melbourne on my 21st birthday, and the type of homelessness that I was in was, called transitionary homelessness. I stayed between my best friend's house and my girlfriend's house at the time. And so most nights I kind of knew where I was going to stay, but not every night I knew where I was going to stay. So I didn't ever end up living on the streets. One night I didn't have somewhere to stay. And I remember being on a park bench in Northcote in a park. It was the middle of winter. And I tried to go to sleep on a park bench, and it was freezing, and I thought I was going to freeze to death. And so I dragged myself to a payphone. This is before we had mobile phones. And I called my sister, who'd already said no, I couldn't stay. And she said, okay, you can stay on one condition, that you sneak in the window and then before the morning comes, you sneak out again so my housemates don't find out. The source of my homelessness was me killing off relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship until I only had really 2 people that I could call on in my life. I left Melbourne, not being well, and I moved to the southeast coast of New South Wales, and I lived in the bush for 3.5 years. I went to heal myself. I knew I needed to get out of the city. And I lived on 40 acres, surrounded by national park on a beautiful river, and it was 26 k's out of town. So there was no phones, there was no electricity, no running water, no internet, and the post came 3 times a week. So unless I went into town, people couldn't contact me. I was uncontactable. That's really the bottom of when my life looked like being a walking mistake. Hi, my name's Danica. I'm a walking mistake. I shouldn't really exist. I shouldn't really be here. When I moved back to Melbourne, I'd come back down and did a personal development course that my friend had done. And that's when I saw what you just saw on the screen here, that I'd made this decision that I was a walking mistake, and I created being a gift to the world. And I want to share with you what life looks like when you're being a gift to the world. Miracles happen. So I want to share with you a miracle that happened. I'm in a relationship. I've been with my partner Francesca for 6 years, and this was our second date. And I worked in an office, and she worked a couple of doors down at a theatre and cafe. And this particular night, I was running late. Really late, and I was planning to take her to my best friend at the time. She had a gig. She was a musician. And really late, I was thinking to myself, how am I going to get across town on public transport on this second date and make it to the gig in time? It's not predictable. I don't know what's going to happen here. I was in a seminar, and the homework of the seminar was to have a miracle every day. And the access to having a miracle was being undeserving. So there I was sitting outside of the theatre cafe waiting for Francesca. A whole bunch of people were around, and then the lights went on off. They all started going into the theatre room to watch their show. And this woman came towards me, and she was carrying a pair of glittery red shoes. And she came up to me and she said, "Hi, I'm from the Red Shoe Delivery Service, and we take people wherever you need to go." What? I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm from the Red Shoe Delivery Service, and all you have to do is put on this pair of red glittery shoes, click your heels together 3 times, and we'll take you to wherever you want to go." And so I went and grabbed Francesca's hand. I said, "Come with me." And this woman took us around the corner, and there was this bright red van. And we opened the boot, and inside the van were all these red glittery shoes. I mean, they had everything. They had the big daddy red glittery shoes, they had the little baby red glittery shoes. And so we rummaged through, and we both picked a pair of red glittery shoes. And then they took photos of us while we clicked our heels together 3 times and said, "There's no place like the Cornish Arms in Brunswick." And we got in the van, and they drove us from South Melbourne to Brunswick all the way. And in the back were 2 musicians, impeccably dressed in these beautiful suits. And they had a guitar, and they serenaded us the whole way. Now, I remember one point looking over at Francesca, who was quite shocked, didn't know what was going on. And she looked at me and she said, "Who are you, and how did you get into my life?" And we arrived at the gig on time, took off the red glittery shoes, thanked the red glittery shoe service, and made it to the gig on time. That was a miracle, and a miracle was just, something that alters your view of reality. That was not something I deserved. I was the one running late. So miracles can show up in your life inside of being a gift to the world. I want to share with you about, you know what? I love dancing. I shared with you that I'm a dancer, and I have to go out dancing at least once a quarter. It just is something that